Caribbean Connections takes us this morning. Well, at least in a couple days, we will be heading, at least those very much involved and invested in this very important talking point. Roads will be leading across to St. Kitts and Nevis, way up north from the 30th of September to the 5th of October for the CTU ICT Week 2024. We want to welcome the Deputy Secretary General of the Caribbean Telecommunications Union, Nigel Cassimire. He's on the Zoom line. Nigel, good morning to you.
Good morning, good morning. Glad to be here.
That's right. And Tariq Mohammed, Project Officer under the umbrella of the International Telecommunication Union. Tariq, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Indeed, very important talking point when you all gather in St. Kitts in a couple of days. We are talking about building technologies for a sustainable and inclusive future. How do we start that process, Nigel?
Well, just to refine your statement a bit, we are bridging technologies as opposed to building. So technologies are there and developing.
Yes.
And we are using technologies to make that bridge from today into the sustainable and inclusive future for the Caribbean.
Yes, indeed.
The event you mentioned, CTU ICT Week, that's the Caribbean Telecommunications Union. That is actually the CARICOM specialized agency for information and communications technologies. Excuse me. Yes. So we are a CARICOM institution headquartered in Port of Spain, right here. And essentially what the CTU is an intergovernmental organization, an organization in which 20 member states of the Caribbean are members. And basically we're talking about the CARICOM states with the addition of the CARICOM states, including some of the British overseas territories like BVI and so on, in addition to Cuba and Dutch St. Martin at this time. So it's 20 in all. So what happens in an ICT week, that's CTU's signature event on an annual basis. We have our statutory meetings, which include our Conference of Ministers. The highest administrative body of the CTU is this Conference of the Ministers of Information and Communication Technologies and Telecommunications from all our 20 member countries. So here in Trinidad and Tobago, for example, our relevant minister is the Honorable Hasselbachus, who is the Minister of Digital Transformation. And in fact, he happens to be at present presiding as the president of the CTU. So he's the president of that conference. So like him, he will assemble with his colleagues from the 20 member countries in St. Kitts and Nevis this year for CTU ICT Week, and they will have their ministers' conference. We'll have a meeting of the Executive Council and so on. Those we must have, and we have on an annual schedule. But when we bring the ministers and high government officials together, we add value to the week, and we add value into the assembly, and we have a ministerial seminar that builds capacity, informs the ministers and our policymakers on technology developments and so on. We bring the regulators together.
I'm glad Nigel mentioned capacity, and I'll probably let Tariq, and you could also weigh in on this, Nigel, because connectivity is important. And when we consider the region and the region's capacity, how are we looking compared to some of our neighbors on this global stage? When we consider places like Netherlands, Chile, China, just to name a few, where connectivity is, from when I look at the stats, robust, strong. You can get internet connections in the jungle from what they have been telling me. What's our capacity like in the region, and where do we need to strengthen up, if at all there are any weaknesses? I'll let Tariq step in, and then Nigel could gather.
So thanks for that. I do think that in terms of the current state, there is a lot of work that can be done. we have been doing a lot of initiatives nationally through our Ministry of Digital Transformation and our regulator, the Telecoms Authority of Trinidad and Tobago. A lot of initiatives to connect the unconnected have been underway, both from the side of physical connectivity, how do we get that connection to the people, as well as the accompanying enabling environment, which encompasses the skills and adoption and all of the other non-technical factors that are needed to include everyone to ensure affordable and meaningful connectivity for all. I just want to hand over to Nigel because I think he might be able to provide a more regional context. Nigel?
Yeah, Nigel, weigh in, please. What's the regional conversation like?
Yes, from a regional point of view, I would say the Caribbean is actually pretty good on a global scale. We are not, say, number one, number two, up there like the Singapores and South Koreas of the world in terms of connectivity and so on. But we rate quite well. And typical high rating ones tend to be the Bahamas, Barbados, well, I would say up to yesterday, and it was also even St. Kitts and Nevis. Trinidad and Tobago tends to be a little behind them, but generally, I would say we are on par with the rest of the world. We are not, as I say, up there at the top with the Singapores and South Koreas and so on. But I think it is a fair statement to say that connectivity in the Caribbean is generally good, and that's because we're basically talking about small islands. The ones who tend to lag a bit would be the ones with the larger territories, like your Guyana, Suriname, Belize, and well, Cuba is a member of the CTU as well.
Yeah, I'm not going to say Cuba because I've heard people have to go
Cuba for different reasons.
Yeah, because I've heard people will have to get internet, you have to buy it on a card, and you have to sit down on a square, and you only have it for a certain amount of time. It's not something that's readily available. Right. So what are you telling your Cuban counterparts? Right.
Well, they are one of the newer members of the CTU. They joined probably within the last 10 or so years, whereas the others have tended to be members from longer. CTU started in 1989. And so we actually celebrated 35 years this year.
Congrats.
Thank you. Yeah, so we are engaging with Cuba now and assisting them to the extent that we can. But of course, there are political factors involved in terms of how far we could actually, and how quickly we can actually make progress. But I would say generally the Caribbean is well connected. We do have some challenges in some of the larger territories, and so there are some of the new technologies emerging now would help us do that. And so we are using those technologies as a bridge to build connectivity throughout our membership.
And part of that building process and bridging the gap, as you would have mentioned, is information and education. Where are we in that regard? How are the conversations with some of your regional partners to inform the population? Because you realize the world is pushing towards digital payment, doing lots of business now online. Where are we in the Caribbean when it comes to that global movement?
We are right there. We are with the movement. We all had the experience of the pandemic recently, and that actually gave a boost globally to this sort of digital transformation and adoption of digital technologies and digital economies and so on. So we as a CTU, one of our mandates, in fact, is building capacity. Right. We do policy harmonization around the Caribbean as a key thing, but certainly building capacity is a part of that. So in the ICT week, we will have, as I said, a ministerial seminar where we we engage with the technology developers in the industry, for example, to update ourselves on the status of technology. I'm talking about the satellite technologies that are emerging now. Not everybody, but Starlink, for example, recently open service in Trinidad and Tobago. That would have been within the last year or so. And that is a low cost satellite connection that basically you can use anywhere. Satellite coverage is available practically anywhere. I mean, unless you may be under some out in the jungle under some dense forest cover or something.
But once you have access to the sky and the sun, you're more or less inside.
Exactly.
That's right.
Exactly. Right. So this will complement our terrestrial-based services, which are, as I said, pretty well developed in any case. So I mean, we have more cell phones than people in Trinidad and Tobago. So so the connectivity is there. The coverage is generally there, certainly in Trinidad and Tobago, but some of our Caribbean neighbors have some work to do still.
Indeed. Tariq, I want to ask you, as a project officer, your particular role and function within the coming together, would you, of course, I'm sure you'll be there for the discussions. You're going to present what's your particular focus going into this most important meeting from September 30th to the 5th of October?
So thanks so much. So I do have a few different roles to play, wearing a few different hats in the upcoming ICT week. First and foremost, as one of the persons spearheading the youth movement of the CTU. Over the past 2 years, CTU has been trying to engage the younger generation, the next generation, or the younger persons between right now the ages of 18 to 35, to develop their skills from a young age to be able to take over and lead the charge towards digitizing and connecting and developing the capacity of the future generations of persons in the ICT sector. So in ICT week, on the first day, Monday, starting bright and early, we'll be having a second Caribbean ICT Youth Network Forum. This is the second of its kind. The first one took place at ICT Week last year. And in this session, we're going to have some capacity building, as Nigel mentioned, all about capacity building. And as you mentioned as well, skills development is very important. This year, we're looking at two key areas: artificial intelligence and cybersecurity. And it's open and free to anyone who's interested in attending. Whether you're on the ground in St. Kitts and Nevis or you want to join us virtually, the options are there, and we'll be taught by industry professionals from international agencies such as the GSMA, for instance. We're also going to use this meeting of the youth to develop an action plan or identify what are the different areas that the young people are focused in getting involved in through the CTU at a regional level at ICT events happening over the next year. So that's what's happening on the Monday. I'll also be presenting on this at one of the sessions of the Executive Council to gather some more support and develop some further awareness and adoption to other of the 20 CTU member states to get their young persons involved. And I will also be presenting on a project that I work on with the CTU through the International Telecommunication Union, which is focused on connectivity, but not so much on land, but rather vulnerable group at sea, the fishers, the small-scale fishers.
Yeah,
so,
well said. It seems like your agenda is fully covered, and indeed it's going to be lots of pace. Nigel, I'll let you have the final say as we look to wrap things up, as we again embrace this very important theme of bridging technologies for a sustainable and inclusive future. You have the final word, Nigel. Go right ahead.
Yes, thank you. So it's ICT week. One can get all information on the CTU website, which is ctu.int. There is a banner there. You click on it and you can get all information about the agendas and so on. It's a high-profile event. Within CARICOM, the lead head of government for information and communication technologies is the Prime Minister of Grenada, the Honorable Deacon Mitchell. He will be present early in the week. We'll also have the ITU Secretary General, the International Telecommunication Union Secretary General, Ms. Doreen Bogdan-Martin, coming in from Geneva also to join us. We'll have the Secretary General of the Commonwealth Telecommunications Organization, Ms. Bernadette Lewis, who is actually from Trinidad and Tobago, and she is she's the immediate past Secretary General of the CTU. Our current Secretary General, of course, Mr. Rodney Taylor, would also be there to preside. He is from Barbados. We'll have the African Telecommunications Union Secretary General, Mr. John Omo. He will be online with us on 2 days of the week. So in addition to bringing our ministers and high-level government officials together, we will have a lot of high-level participation as well. And as Tariq said, a lot of the events would be online, so persons can follow, in particular the youth, because that sustainable and inclusive future that we want wouldn't be achieved by people with gray hair like me. So we are trying to engage and grow the participation of youth. That's like tertiary level students and young professionals in the ICT world and ICT policy development.
Nigel,
so that is, as you said, the 30th of September to the 4th of October in St. Kitts and Nevis.
Nigel, thank you so much. I thought the gray was for style. Don't worry yourself, man. Nigel, all the best. Tariq.
Thank you.
When it's done, feel free to come back now to give us a little post-mortem and tell us about the findings. So we'll touch base, I would imagine, somewhere in October.
Indeed.
All the best.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For sure. Very important conversation taking place there in St. Kitts. And as always, we keep you in the loop with regional developments via our Caribbean connections. Your 7 a.m. news update. It's next.